Let's imagine for a moment that you could travel back 50,000 years. Around you, there are no cities, no internet, not even writing. Humans lived in small groups, wandering from place to place, hunting and gathering food. They had to fight wild animals, endure harsh weather, and deal with complicated relationships within their own tribes. Here's a sensitive but fascinating question. In prehistoric times, when humans had no concept of family or law, did sexual relations between close relatives occur? And if so, how did it affect the evolution of humankind? In this long video, we'll travel across tens of thousands of years of history, from the dawn of humanity to the rise of civilizations and their taboos. By the end, you'll understand why incest is a universal taboo today, but also how it was once an unavoidable part of our distant past. So let's begin with Chapter 1, Prehistory and the Rise of Humankind. To understand the story of sex, marriage, and incest, we need to go back to the beginning. Where did humans come from? Around 6 to 7 million years ago, our distant ancestors split from the lineage that led to chimpanzees. Over millions of years, many human species emerged and disappeared, leaving only fossil traces. Among the most notable are Homo habilis, handyman, about 2.4 million years ago, who first used stone tools. Homo erectus, erect man, living about 1.8 million years ago, who left Africa and spread across Eurasia. And finally, Homo sapiens, our modern species, appearing around 200 to 300,000 years ago in Africa. At the beginning, Homo sapiens were not numerous. Genetic studies suggest that all modern humans may descend from just a few thousand individuals. This means our ancestors lived in small groups, and when a community is so tiny, choosing partners often meant choosing from close relatives. Picture a band of 20 to 40 people, moving constantly to find food. Men hunted, women gathered, and children grew up together. There were no marriage contracts, no family registries, and no clear concept of extended relatives. Sexual relations in this context were more fluid than today, directly tied to survival and reproduction. With limited options, sexual relations between kin were not only possible, they were almost inevitable. But evolution never stands still. Children born from incest were often weaker, more prone to disease, and less likely to survive. By contrast, groups that exchanged partners with outsiders produced healthier offspring.
Over time, a natural instinct to avoid incest began to emerge. It wasn't yet a law, but a product of natural selection. Groups with less inbreeding thrived, while others faded away. In hunter-gatherer life, survival was everything. Eating, sleeping, reproducing, all were part of instinct, but subtle patterns of behavior regarding mate choice were already forming. Men often hunted, women gathered and cared for children. This division influenced mate selection. Skilled hunters were more attractive to women, while fertile women were valued as bearers of the next generation. Anthropologists suggest that early humans did not practice strict monogamy. Instead, sexual relations within tribes were varied and flexible. This increased the likelihood of incest. A man might sleep with several women, some of whom could be close relatives. But since the concept of kinship was vague, this wasn't considered wrong at the time. When small groups met, they sometimes exchanged partners. This practice helped avoid conflict and boosted genetic diversity. Children born of mixed tribes were healthier, reinforcing the practice over generations. This was the first step toward incest avoidance, even if the people themselves didn't consciously realize it. So why was incest widespread in early human history? At times, humanity dwindled to just a few thousand individuals. With such a small pool, incest was inevitable. Modern society distinguishes parents, siblings, cousins, uncles, and aunts. Prehistoric humans did not. Children grew up together, identified simply as tribe members, and so mating within close kin was common. In a harsh environment, producing offspring was the top priority. Fertility mattered more than bloodlines. The downside, high rates of genetic disease, birth defects, and infant mortality. Groups that relied heavily on incest often weakened or died out. Groups that mixed bloodlines grew stronger and survived. This evolutionary pressure laid the foundation for the universal incest taboo we know today. Modern genetics confirms what natural selection taught our ancestors. Incest is harmful. Children of close relatives face higher risks of genetic diseases. Birth defects and infant mortality increase. Reading this content is so eloquent. Fertility in subsequent generations often declines. In prehistoric times, without medicine, these consequences were devastating. Weak children rarely survived harsh winters or long hunts. Natural selection gradually weeded out highly inbred groups. In contrast, groups that exchanged partners across tribes produced more robust descendants, ensuring survival. In effect, nature punished incest by lowering survival chances while rewarding diversity. This explains why nearly all human cultures developed incest taboos. They weren't arbitrary, they were products of evolution. As humans shifted to early agriculture, everything changed. Permanent settlements led to larger populations and clearer family structures. In settled communities, people began to distinguish between fathers, mothers, and siblings. Kinship became clearer, and informal rules against incest emerged. These rules weren't just about biology. If siblings fought over the same mate, the tribe risked division. By discouraging incest, leaders reduced internal conflict. Remarkably, societies across the world, in Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Americas, developed incest taboos independently. This universality shows it was a natural step in human evolution. Beyond biology and social needs, religion and belief systems reinforced incest prohibitions. Tribes often believed in ancestral spirits. Sexual relations within the same bloodline could be seen as offensive to the spirits. Thus, avoiding incest became sacred. With the rise of great civilizations, laws formally outlawed incest. In ancient China, Confucian ideals emphasized family roles, condemning incest as immoral. In the West, the Bible explicitly banned incestuous unions. In India, the Manusmriti prohibited marriage within the same clan. Religion strengthened these laws by associating incest with divine punishment. Fear of gods made taboos nearly unbreakable. In agricultural civilizations, kinship structures grew more complex. Clans became the basic social unit. Marriage was no longer just about individuals, but also about alliances between families.
Reading this content is so eloquent. In China, clan-based prohibitions were codified. In Rome, incest was explicitly outlawed. Marriage evolved into a tool for political and economic strategy. Families sought alliances, further reducing incest. Yet, exceptions existed. In ancient Egypt,
Royal families sometimes practiced sibling marriage to preserve divine blood, but even there, common people adhered to outbreeding. Thus, incest shifted from being common to being an elite rarity rather than the norm. Studies of surviving tribal groups show nearly all had rules against incest, though the rules varied. Some banned marriage within a clan, others within a village. This proves the universality of the taboo. Early humans did go through periods of unavoidable inbreeding. Over time, intergroup mating vastly improved genetic diversity. Today, science clearly demonstrates incest's dangers. Most countries legally prohibit incestuous relationships, reflecting both biological necessity and cultural heritage. We've traveled across history. In prehistory, incest was a necessity due to tiny populations. In hunter-gatherer societies, partner exchange began reducing inbreeding. In agricultural and civilized societies, laws, taboos, and religions firmly banned incest. And today, genetics confirms these bans as vital for survival. What we call morality today is deeply rooted in tens of thousands of years of natural selection and cultural evolution. Without this process, humanity might not have survived or thrived as it has. Thank you for watching this long video. If you found this topic fascinating, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and to hear more stories about the evolution and history of humankind.